Hey, everybody, welcome back to Twisted History Podcast. It's myself, Large. It's St. Anne directly next to me. On her right-hand side is Vibs. Directly across from Vibs is the lovely and vivacious John Kelly. This episode is brought to you by Simply Safe. Every day, I make countless decisions, but one of the easiest and most important is securing my home with Simply Safe. The moment I arm the system, I know my family and everything I've worked for are protected. Whether I'm stepping out for the day, settling in for the night, the small action delivers something priceless, and that's peace of mind. I know my wife was mauled by a German Shepherd because of Simply Safe and stopped the dog from mauling poor Blue Cheese. With Simply Safe, millions of Americans enjoy the new standard in home security and greater peace of mind every time they arm their system, when heading out in the morning or when locking up each night. Traditional security systems only take action after somebody has already broken in. That's too late. Simply Safe's Active Guard outdoor protection can help prevent break-ins before they even happen. AI-powered cameras backed up by live professional monitoring agents monitor your property and detect suspicious activity. If someone's lurking around or acting suspiciously, those agents see and talk to them in real time, activate spotlights, and even contact the police, all before they have a chance to get inside your home. SimplySafe.com/twisted to claim 50% off a new system with professional monitoring plan and get your first month free. 50% off a new system with a professional monitoring plan and get your first month free. That's SimplySafe.com/twisted. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Keep your family protected, right? Go and get. At this point,
so clear,
you don't
too.
have it. Yeah, just go
Not
get
that I
some
wanted to see
Simply Safe.
that clear, but
If you loved somebody, send them Simply Safe. Vibs, new development for you, I believe. You're a fedora guy now.
Big fedora guy.
You carry them around.
I got it sitting next to me.
Don't think that I didn't realize when you walked in with it that I wasn't going to immediately call you out on that.
I was a little. Is it backwards?
No, that's perfect. Yeah.
I was a little upset.
you know who is a big fedora guy?
Frank Sinatra, Justin
Yes.
Timberlake,
Billy Zane.
Billy Zane.
Yes.
Yeah, Billy Zane.
Who's that?
Oh, Jesus, don't say that,
Remember the
Vibsy.
Titanic, the guy she was supposed to marry?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking of the workout guy, Billy.
Billy Blanks.
Billy Blanks.
Billy
yeah.
Blanks.
Billy Blanks.
Tybo, Billy Blanks. No, Billy Zane was
I
He's
can make his
legit.
pecs dance.
Zoolander. Remember Zoolander?
It's a walk-off.
Where he gets in, he's like, "Mind your business, Billy Zane." Like when they about to do the walk off, yeah. Billy Zane was there too. He's in one of the guys' corners.
Former heartthrob, right?
Very much
Former?
so. Former. I think he's one of the more handsome guys.
I agree. And
Yeah.
No, he
went
currently
bald.
is not in the top 10 by any means. But
What are you
go
talking
go
about?
off.
He's a bald guy.
He hasn't been in a
with
movie
a-
since Titanic.
Not
a
true.
perfectly manicured
Oh, I
beard.
gotta look.
2024 waltzing with Brando.
Yeah.
John, I bet you feel stupid.
Marlon
No,
Brando
Billy
fedora
Zane
guy.
is definitely still.
Right.
I bet there's a Billy Zane effect.
He's got some iconic fedora looks.
Yes.
Yes, he does rock a fedora.
So when we finish recording this, Fishbowl will be in there recording, and I went on Fishbowl last week and convinced them that I was becoming a fedora guy. I just didn't have the confidence right now.
Right.
So when I leave this, I want them to see me in a fedora, and they think I just do this all the time.
Right. I tell you what, it's not that practical with headphones.
No,
You're a
it's
big
not.
headphones guy anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm Jason Mraz in the studio.
You-
just like,
Yes.
ba-ba-da-da-da-ba-da.
Yeah, he's a scat guy.
Yeah.
He does a lot of scatting. Right?
Yeah.
And then you just need to become be a bookie, start taking bets, and then you're like Vibsy 2 times.
You're either a theater guy or a jazz musician. I feel like.
Yeah,
This is
maybe
not
like
me.
an old school Italian. Mr. Puglisi used to wear a lot of fedoras.
Fedoras
He was a
are
guy. I own a couple.
It's a
I'm
good
not going
look.
to sit here and say I don't.
I have a nice one. We could all go out.
What happened to the fedora? Why did it?
People didn't look good in them. You rock it.
You know what happens?
I like it.
The baseball hat. Baseball hat came and killed. You know what happened to the fedora? This is twisted history. There was a time a long time ago where adults set the tone for everything. So when you were growing up in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, you listened to the music that your parents listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, there was a culture shift. And that culture shift was the older people started to get so fucking enamored with the younger generation that they started listening to music they had no business listening to from a cultural perspective.
Right.
They started wearing fucking Jordans and tight jeans and buttoning up their buttons and stopped wearing their fucking fedoras. The culture had shifted. So it went from the fedora, which is an everlasting symbol of class and style, to a fucking baseball hat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It went from Frank Sinatra to Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
the straws that used to stir the drink were older gentlemen. And now the straws that stir the drink are young fucking punks. I just said that out loud.
Yeah, and you can still see, I wasn't kidding, like horse racing, they live in the 1920s where everybody wears fedoras and like
Yes.
they're expensive. So now most people will not buy one unless you're in that culture.
Right.
Like even then it was a class thing. I think the bowler hat, which you could almost, if you knew nothing about it, accidentally buy.
Sure.
That was back then in London. So
The pork pie, the bowler, the
the
fedora.
Irish, of course, have their own.
Yeah,
hat.
the Scully.
yeah.
So
right?
Abbey
they
hat.
were never going to wear a fedora.
Yeah. And now if you wear something like that, it used to just be regular. Now it's like, what are you going to like a Peaky Blinders, concert?
And now it's the
Blinders.
cowboy hat again.
Ooh, I love that.
Cowboy hat's never going
You're in
away.
Nashville.
Cowboy
yeah.
hat.
I wore one 2 weeks ago in Talladega because we had to do some stuff with Chili's, Ride the Dente.
Ride the dentist.
And they gave us cowboy hats. And somebody, one of the drivers actually, I think it was Carson Hocevar, had said, did you see these hats they gave us? I'm like, yeah, they're pretty cool. He's like, no, the brand of hat. This is a great cowboy hat. So I have and it fits me. They gave me like an extra large one.
That's what I mean. They're quality.
I
and
got
the
a
only
picture
thing
of
is-
it, and
yeah.
I told him, wear that home.
Wear the hat. Yeah. You grab some spurs and
At the wedding, you could be the cowboy
I
guy
could
with
be
the
the
suit.
cowboy guy. Yeah.
It's a hard look to pull off. So you
Yeah, I think I could do. If he could do fedora, I'll be cowboy hat guy.
How do you feel about the bolo tie?
I'm a huge bolo tie enthusiast. Huge bolo tie. I have multiple ones. One of them I have a scorpion embossed
Somebody.
embossed in amber.
Somebody did something with all your bullets.
That's
No, I replaced them. I have a bunch more. I love bolo ties. Going back to NASCAR, there is a company that will make bolo ties with your favorite NASCAR driver's car in the bolo. So all of a sudden,
Labonte.
huge Suarez guy.
If you showed
right with
up
the 99.
Canelo Alvarez tattoo
God.
and a Carson Hocevar car in it, no.
Yeah.
Well, it's perfect for
My
Mexico
foot
City,
down.
actually. I mean, oh my
From
gosh.
Mexico City. I'm going to Mexico City.
Yeah.
in a couple weeks
NASCAR,
with
big NASCAR event.
Yeah. This
I think that's the look.
Get
Yeah.
an eagle holding the snake. That'd be cool.
Yes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. This
Please
episode,
stop encouraging him.
we'll start with a DM. John had sent it to us last night. It's from a gentleman named Ed. I won't give his last name because I don't know if he wants me to give his last name, but it says, hey, Twisted History. Shout out Large, St. Anne, Vibs, and John. Longtime listener, first time DMing. My wife, did you read this one yet? Did
No.
you see this DM? Listen
I
to
was-
this
I was
fucking thing.
Plotting Ed.
Yeah. My wife and I have been huge fans of the podcast for years. We began listening right before COVID shutdowns. At that time, we decided to quarantine out in Colorado. Nice little option, right?
Right.
Let's get the hell out of Dodge, go out to the mountains. During the 17-hour drive, Twisted History was the first podcast I introduced that we both began enjoying together. I get that a lot, right? Do you get that? Like where people are like, there's so many podcasts I can't listen to with my wife or I can't listen to with my husband because it just, but somehow this bridges a little bit of a gap. I think it's you, right? It's not Vibsy. I mean, Vibsy brings the sex,
I am
right? John brings the professionalism.
into the spectrum.
I bring the pity. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, you bring a little bit of universality to
Moxie.
it. Yeah. No, I think, anyway. So he says, during the 17-hour drive, Twisted is began to enjoy it. When it's a small thing, while it is a small thing, it's still a core memory for us. My wife and I fell in love with the podcast and all your personalities. Most importantly, the relationship of Large and St. Anne. It's kind of nice. Yeah. We strive to model our relationship and eventual marriage after the McCarthys, as we looked highly upon them and how you both had the essence of fun in your marriage. You were integral into a lot of our comedic laughs over the years. This is a great fucking DM. I mean, I love when they pump the tires
Very
a little bit
nice.
with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my wife suddenly and unexpectedly passed away.
That killed me when I read
Yeah, at the too
Heartbreaking.
young age of 35 in January, only after 15 months of marriage. Fuck.
that. That is not fair.
Yeah. We were about to start a wow. That's
I am respectfully taking my fedora off.
yeah, you should,
putting
right?
it
We were about to start a family and purchase a home in Chicago before the tragedy. During this time, I've gone back to listen to many of your old episodes, which has given me joy in such dark times in my life. I want to thank you for continuing giving me laughs and think back of fond memories I have listening to all you banter and how my wife and I would listen to you guys laugh. Your podcast weirdly means a lot of how I remember times with my wife. So again, thank you for that. As we, you're
I know,
very
it's-
welcome.
it's-
As we spend a good amount of time vacationing in Colorado, and this is wild too. Like, so this guy, obviously that's a very heartfelt thing. It's actually tough to read. And then he gives us a topic. They're kind of cool. Like, that's kind of like fanish. I don't consider people who listen to this fans. I consider them followers. And then sometimes when you see this, it's, I don't know. As we spent a good amount of time vacationing in Colorado, we always found this mystic and intrigue into the 10th Mountain Division. There's a lot of homage to this military division in Colorado and mainly around the Vail area, including a now whiskey distillery named after them. While not maybe twisted, there is definitely eerie mystique around the division and training they went through during World War II. Love you guys and keep the podcast rolling. And that's from Eddie.
I
Wow.
appreciate
Shout out, Ed.
his love, but man,
That's tough.
I'm sad for them. That's
Yeah. And he didn't obviously include his wife's name. But yeah, so thanks so much for sending that, Eddie. That's fucking awesome. I think that's kind of cool. Right, John?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, Ed. And
Yeah.
small condolence, but we'll send you something.
Yeah, the 10th Mountain Division is the 10th Mountain Division. If people don't know, are fucking studs too. You're right. I'm probably not going to do a full episode on them. I'll do them at some point. Do you know them at all?
I don't.
I haven't heard of them. I just Googled them.
10th Mountain Division are the fucking
Are they Marines or are they Army?
Army,
Okay.
but they're one of those elite forces of Army. So what are the Green Berets? Green Berets Army?
They're Army too.
Yeah, and then what's it? Navy SEALs?
Yeah.
Correct.
Marines are just fucking Marines, right? It's just
Yeah,
crazy all over the
they
place.
have the Ranger. Oh no, that's Army.
Army Rangers, yeah.
They have something.
But the 10th Mountain Division is one of those.
Oh, they
that's
have the Expeditionary. So
okay.
They were the
Expeditionary
first,
Forces?
I think, in ironically like overseas.
Okay.
They do, yeah. So there's
Yeah.
some distinctions.
So right. So John is saying there's distinctions between your regular armed forces and your elite forces, and this mountain division is definitely considered one of the elite forces. And one of the things that they do, which I think is what Ed is referring to, because I know this, they recruit professional skiers to become soldiers because they're trained specifically for mountain terrain. Like they were one of the guys that was specifically brought over to secure the Italian Alps in World War II. So they're fucking studs. So every time you see a stupid movie shot where guys in like James Bond are skiing with machine guns, down like slaloms and shit like that.
All in white, right?
Yeah, that's the 10th Mountain Division. Maybe the Black Hawk Down guys might have been 10th Mountain Division.
Yeah, Delta, Rangers, there's a lot. But yeah.
I could tell you with confidence, you know who is probably the most notable member of the 10th Mountain Division? Bob fucking Dole. Bob Dole with the fucking, and I told you about Bob Dole being the fucking, all the shit that had gone on with him. They basically almost, he almost was flayed or whatever. But I believe can you hit Bob Dole 10th Mountain Division? Because I believe he is. So Bob Dole's one. Anyway, so that's great DM, obviously, and Ed's our favorite.
Bob Dole.
Ed is our second favorite listener ever because his wife was #1 with a bullet. So we appreciate you, Ed.
Yeah, Bob
Sir?
Dole was in. Sorry to steal your
Go ahead.
thunder there. 10th Mountain Division, but a long time ago. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We're getting old.
Second lieutenant.
I thought it was going to be in like Kuwait,
Yeah.
World War
Served in
II.
the
Yeah.
10th Mountain Division during World War II, specifically during the intense fighting in the Italian mountains. He was
the Alps.
He was second lieutenant and platoon leader in the Apennine, I'm saying the correctly, mountains in 1945, where he was severely wounded while attempting to assist a downed radio man.
Yeah. Bob Dole's a stud. Well, we'll do a little Bob Dole at some point too. But you think about when Mussolini was, we had to make that mountain, we had to storm some sort of fucking eagle's nest. That's the 10th Mountain
Are
Division.
you kidding? A twisted history of like American heroes?
I could do a whole episode. I don't know
10th
why I
Army
just.
Division? Let's do it.
The thing is that Ed
Ed.
started
I
out
love
got me so emotional. I didn't even fucking look into it. I could easily do an episode on him.
Let's
He's
do it.
absolutely right.
Did we,
Done,
ever
Ed.
did we ever discuss, just because we're kind of rolling on things that are
Yeah, go ahead. I don't give a shit.
that I think Khan's had him in. He's a Medal of Honor winner, I think.
Kyle Carpenter?
No, he's posthumous. So it was about the Air Force controller. I think they had a book about it. Because, yeah, you're right. I was thinking of Kyle, who's alive.
The
Very much
stud,
alive.
yeah. Big time
Yeah.
stud.
So, we should talk about a few of those because the more recent ones, that U.S. Air Force controller, I'm trying to think of his name, but that was a crazy book.
Yeah. Oh, no,
Crazy.
I read the book. I remember we were doing this podcast.
Yeah.
And Cons was like, I have Kyle Carpenter next door.
yeah.
He was next door with Zero Blog. I was like, who the fuck's Kyle Carpenter? Do you know who he is?
Yeah, we were eating like bull penis on Lowering the Bar, and he walked by. I'm like, do you want to sit with us? And he's like, sure. So yeah, that was our dip into
It was last year that we had him in. I think.
No, it was
maybe 2. Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a couple. And
Yeah.
he was the first guy that I was like, I don't mind to be so, flip with this, but thank you so much for your service. And he was like, you and your family deserve it.
Oh, you called.
That
me
was the
crying when
fucking
you-
guy. Called my wife crying.
Yeah.
The fucking guy
Yeah.
killed me. Most
Talked
handsome
about
guy
that,
I've
yeah.
ever met. I mean, his
Yeah.
face is legitimately a jigsaw puzzle from saving somebody, but he's one of the most
looks
handsome guys I've
fantastic
ever
now.
fucking seen. Yeah, guy's an absolute man.
Yeah,
We're
that's
all
the-
pieces of shit.
That's
aren't
the
we,
name.
guys?
That's actually the name of his book. You Are Worth It. which-
Yeah.
2021 was when he came in.
Yeah.
So I think he was promoting that book, and then the one I was talking about was Alone at Dawn, John Chapman. Very good.
Okay, is it good?
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Insane. Just to even see what some of these guys were doing. Like as an Air Force controller, you call in like air support.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with your guys. You have to deal with the enemy. It's like you're playing this game of Risk,
Yeah.
and you have to decide where to put. It's just like I can't even imagine thinking about that.
And it all comes down. I'm talking about cliches in movies, or even in Game of Thrones. It's all that same table. Where they have like almost like a hockey stick, and they move. The this with like a rook to here. We're gonna put this one on the keep. This one's gonna be north of the wall. This one, Risk. I thought was a terrible fucking game.
Oh.
I bought it when I was a kid. I tried it. I couldn't get into it.
But the digital ones are fun.
Oh, the one's good.
Then you
Okay.
don't have to clean up.
I gave up on it because I think that their things were Roman numerals. So you had like little tiny plastic Roman numerals all over the place. Risk was a board game.
Oh no, I know Risk.
Do you know Risk?
Axis and Allies.
Really?
never
And I've
played.
never played that either.
Oh,
Is
that was
good?
so much better than Risk. Yeah.
Really?
World War II, obviously. And
Oh
yeah.
shit.
Very complex, but yeah, if
Yeah,
you get the hang
oh.
of it, really good.
Yeah.
Stratego, one of my favorites.
Strategic.
Really?
Great.
Oh,
I used to go, head to head with my
a
dad.
little more like checkers, but yeah.
My daughter Bridget is 15. She's a high school freshman. And in history class now, she's studying World War II. And and who is Troy?
Mike Troy is her.
Mike Troy is her teacher. Mike Troy is also my son's basketball coach when my older kid had gone there. And very good history teacher, very good guy, to be honest with you. And she's like, Dad, do you know anything about World War II? I was like, I don't know if I know anything more than, casually having something into it, because I don't know how strong my kung fu is outside of just like shooting the shit with friends.
Right.
But once
yeah,
she started
I-
doing
I-
it, she was like, do you know anything about, Leningrad? I was like, oh shit. And I sit down, I go through it. Then she had a friend of hers over. They were helping like each other study. And they were like, Miss McCarthy, can you tell us about this And I was like, you know what? I can. Sit down. Let me talk to you about the Luftwaffe.
Were they
Like, the
playing a
whole deal.
prank on you? Were they
No.
No, she got a 92 on the test.
They're legitimately like studying for World War II. John, I couldn't hold my tongue. Like when I was like, I don't know too much about it.
What about integers, Large? Are you good on integers?
Yeah, I am.
You know how glad I am they didn't ask him about geography? Because then he'd be like, the flaccid penis, you know?
Oh, yeah. Liechtenstein is the G spot. All right. Before we start, some addendum to last episode's incorrect history. This was sent in. I got a bunch of DMs from various people. So we talked about it last episode. Napoleon wasn't short. Like all the stuff that we had thought was true that may or not have been true. A lot of people sent this in to me, and I'd seen it before, and I didn't know if it resonated with a lot of people, but Nero didn't fiddle while Rome was burning to the ground. Rome certainly burned to the ground at some point, but Nero was in Antium at the time, about 30 miles outside of Rome, and fiddles were not even invented yet. Nero did play another harp-like instrument called a sitar maybe, but there were no actual accounts of him jamming out while Rome had burned. So take the Nero fiddled while it burned right out of your lexicon. We also mentioned Columbus and how he didn't necessarily discover America since, one, people had already been living on the continent for thousands of years, and he wasn't even the first European explorer to reach North America since a crew of Vikings actually sailed around Canada somewhere around 1000 AD. But this one I didn't know. What were the 3 ships that Columbus came over on? Does everybody remember that shit?
The Nina, the Pinto, and the
Pinta?
Santa
Yep.
Maria.
And it's
There you
all
go.
bullshit. So the
Fuck.
Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria weren't the names of Christopher Columbus's ships, at least not fully true. Maybe the Santa Maria was real because they name those ships after saints all the time. But the Nina's real name was most likely the Santa Clara, and while the Pinta's real name still goes as unknown. Somehow they just were named the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, where the Santa Maria might have been the only true name, and the other two were bullshit. I love knowing that mermaids might have been manatees because of Columbus's guys had ran into mermaids somewhere, down in the Hispaniola or something. And there's also a stat that mermaids,
lonely.
manatees, female manatees' vaginas resemble human vaginas more than any other animal, either in the water or on land. And the only reason they would know that is one of Columbus's guys had to fuck a manatee,
100%.
right?
Like I just said, boat life is lonely. You're out there, no women, just your boys.
Yeah. And just pots of grease. So I don't know if I was to have another kid, I'm trying to get Annie to have another kid. I don't think that we're going to go Nina Pinta Santa Maria anymore.
No, we are not.
I think I'm going to call bullshit. I'm going to be that asshole who does that just for that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Santa Maria.
I'm going to send
Clara.
you the article where I got it from so you can see.
Yeah. Another thing, we were talking about Thomas Edison last episode too. Thomas Edison was the driving force behind the invention that would eventually become a tattoo machine. Like we've always left that out whenever we talk about Thomas Edison, and I didn't know about that. So if you look at historical figures, Joseph Stalin, Andrew Jackson, James K. Polk, or Winston Churchill, which of those guys had tattoos? They all did, right? Stalin took over after the death of Lenin. We got to get into that one of these days too, how Stalin came to power, because it's fascinating how this guy had basically come in and swept up and just took control of the whole fucking country.
He was the quiet guy that would just do the dirty work.
Exactly. Was it Trotsky
worked
was
his
the
way
other
up.
dude, and he just ran him out of town?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, but Stalin was the guy, right? Terror, extreme violence, probably resulted in over 20 million deaths. But he's also a unsung hero of World War II, right? Because they're the guys that probably did most of the legwork, with 28 million casualties on the Russian side during World War II. But he was in prison several times during his youth, and that's where he inked his chest with a blue skull design. I mentioned Thomas Edison.
Sick.
He tried it out. He has 5 dots on his forearm. It seems to be like...
Is that like Morse code or?
I have no idea, but like you see, I noticed Devlin has like 3 dots.
Brother, I tattooed those on him.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's the story about?
What does it
that?
mean?
Go on.
So he... actually, it's kind of a deep story. Well, we were doing Lower in the Bar, and we were
Yeah,
having
tattoo machine.
bullshit on each other.
Yeah.
And Devlin, at the end of it, comes up and he's like, "Hey, man, would you mind touching up my 3-dot tattoo?" And I was like, "I don't know if I'm the guy you want doing this." And I was like, "What does this mean? Is this like the Predator? It looks like the Predator's
Yes.
like sights."
It's funny. It does.
And he was like, "Well, actually, my uncle had it, and he passed away, and then I got it
Aw.
to honor him." And I was like, "Okay, all right, yeah, I'd love to do that."
Yeah.
Forgot the origin of the 3 dots, though?
That
gotta get to the
I
bottom
don't.
of
Yeah, I
this.
don't know if he knew exactly what it was. He just said his uncle had it. And-
Huge espresso
I love
martini
that.
guy.
Yeah.
So it's actually 3 coffee beans, right? Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
yeah, he was a Midnight Bean fan.
I love that.
So Thomas Edison had 5 dots put on his own, which I didn't know. Stalin had the skull on his chest. Andrew Jackson had a tattoo of a large tomahawk on his inner thigh. I mean, Andrew Jackson's treatment of slaves and whatnot kind of has kicked him off the front pages of history books. But Andrew Jackson had a fucking tomahawk.
Inner thigh is
It's painful.
it's painful
Yeah.
and it's sexy.
It is a little bit
It is
sexy.
so fucking sexy.
Yeah.
As I'm looking it up now because I want to see what
You
it looks
think
like.
Andrew Jackson ever entered into his marital chamber and then just dropped his pants and was like, "Guess who's about to chop that pussy down?" Oh, I like the way that sounded when I said it.
Old Hickory.
Yeah, old
Show her Old Hickory.
Yeah.
And this is the divide of listeners that we were speaking about.
Exactly, yeah.
This is what we've been resorted to.
Yeah. James K. Polk had a Chinese symbol that translated to the word eager. That could be the worst thing that I've ever
That's
heard of.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. We know Prime Minister during World War II, Nobel Prize for Literature. He had a tattoo of an anchor on his right upper forearm as a legacy of his years as a Cuba, India, South Africa correspondent. And then his mom famously had a tattoo of a snake eating itself around her wrist. And his mom may or may not be the one who invented the Manhattan.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
She was
She was a
party
wild
girl.
one.
Yes,
Yeah.
she was.
I don't know why that pops up. So if it goes in my head, I have to share it with you guys.
I think James K. Polk was a little uptight too. Like I think he it was all business.
Was he?
And the fact that he had tattoos,
Business during the day.
party at night.
Party
Yeah,
at
yeah.
What's the worst tattoo you have? You have how many?
I probably got like
10?
30 probably.
Jesus, I didn't know because they're smaller bangers.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose one for you.
Yeah.
What's
the
the
smaller
worst?
ones? Worst one I have. I don't know.
What's your least favorite?
Least favorite? I got the Indy 500 logo, and then below it my niece's initials, but it just looks like a bad REO Speedwagon tattoo.
Oh man.
So I have like older people come up and be like, big fan of fucking REO, man, love it.
Oh, no.
So yeah, I might need to get that one.
John, you have any? You don't have any, Annie?
I do
If you
not.
did, you've been hiding pretty well for the past 25 years. I got the
I've been
Canelo
working
one.
on my design for years, and I just can't decide.
Really?
What are the choices? What are the
No, I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know. You have two.
I haven't been
That's why.
inspired.
I have the one that I don't like is the Canelo one. Like the Canelo one I wish wasn't on my
like
my
that
body.
one.
You
Yeah,
know
I
what?
just-
I don't like where it's placed because when he's like, whenever he rolls on his side, like I'm looking right at it.
the only person that sees it whenever she's pegging me. So, but I think it's 106. She always says "Viva la Mexico Cabrones," which I think is a shot across my bow. No, but the one I have of Annie, I love. But this one, if I could get it changed, I would change it to an REO Speedwagon.
It's pretty,
album
yeah.
cover in a fucking-
Shout
I
out
don't know what I
my
would
boy Tattoos by Demo. He does a great job, but I put these two together without thinking, and
Has he done all your tattoos?
he's done them all. Yeah, he's great.
Zac Efron. These are the worst ones
Wait, you
that I
forgot
was
Teddy
able.
Roosevelt. He's got a big family crest on his chest.
So that's unconfirmed. A lot of them are unconfirmed. But Teddy Roosevelt, when you look up presidents that are tattooed, some of them say that it's FDR that's got the,
Look at
the
him.
thing. I know. That's like obviously.
I know.
Yeah. A couple of terrible celebrity tattoos. Pay attention to them next time you see it. Zac Efron has YOLO tattooed on his palm. Do you have YOLO anywhere?
I don't.
Good. Don't.
I missed the boat on that. That was
One
big
of
in
these I
college.
love.
Yeah.
One of the
Jennifer
things-
Lawrence has
one.
H2O
I love that.
on her hand. And she says she has there to remind her to drink water. She has it right there in between her thumb and her forefinger. She just has H2O there as a thing to stay hydrated. Amanda Seyfried? You know, the
I
girl with
say
the big eyes? Pretty girl. Blonde-haired girl?
So talented.
Yeah, very, very talented. Musician and actress. She was
Remember I
in Ted
showed you
2.
that thing that she does with
Yeah.
the, I don't know what instrument it is.
She was Samantha Jackson in Ted 2. Sam Jackson.
Yeah. Although Christina Melody has big eyes too, so I don't know who we're talking
Amanda
about.
Seyfried was Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
She's the
No, I'm aware.
She has the word minge tattooed on her foot.
minge. What's
Minge
that
is
mean?
like an English term for a dirty vagina.
Oh.
Like, oh yeah, they got my minge
Oh,
all
yeah,
greasy.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And so she's got that, and she says that it was something that her and her friends use kind of, the way sometimes people call each other assholes or douchebags. So if you look at her in pumps, I put a picture in there too, clear as fucking day, it says minge. Kelly Osbourne has the word solidarity tattooed on her head, which is just fucking stupid. Famous astronaut Katy Perry has Jesus across her wrist, and Nicole Richie has Virgin across her wrists. I can guarantee she's not. And then that guy Moby has vegan for life tattooed right here on his neck.
It's big too.
It's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just is awful. And the best celebrity or historical tattoo is by far Tsar Nicholas. Tsar Nicholas was the last Tsar of Russia. He was only 5'6" tall, so he's a short king. And while he was on a trip to Japan in 1890, he decided to have a tattoo of a dragon. So this huge dragon took up his entire right forearm, its mouth wide open, ready to devour his enemies. And when you look at the type of sleeves that everyone has now, it's not that huge. But when you think about this, it's 1890s.
Right.
And you're the Tsar of Russia, and you get a giant Japanese dragon, and it's awesome looking. That's badass.
Yeah, that is badass.
Good on him. Yeah. On the same trip, one of his Japanese bodyguards tried to murder Tsar Nicholas. Though the attack was unsuccessful, the sword did leave a 9-centimeter long scar on his head. Tsar Nicholas, I didn't know, but he was a good guy. He did not come to a good end.
No,
The worst thing that
Right.
happened to Tsar Nicholas was on July 17th, 1918. Him and his family were essentially in exile after he abdicated the czarship, the throne, to Russia, and they were led to a basement in a house in which they were staying for what they thought was a photo shoot. But instead, they were met by a Bolshevik firing squad. Nicholas was shot several times in the chest, and his daughters, Anastasia, Tatiana, Olga, and Maria, survived the first hail of bullets since they were wearing over 1.3 kilograms of diamonds and precious gems sewn into their clothing, which provided some initial protection from the bullets. They were then stabbed with bayonets and finally shot at close range in their heads, which kind of goes back to that urban myth that Anastasia was still out and about.
Right.
She wasn't. She was shot and then fucking stabbed. But it's crazy. Like, where do you hide your goods when you're, on the run and you're the daughter of a czar? You sew it into your corset and you have one of the greatest bulletproof vests of all time, but it wasn't enough. The bodies were driven to a nearby woodland, searched, and burned. The remains were soaked in acid and finally thrown down an old mine shaft. On the following day, other members of the Romanov family, including Grand Duchess Elizabeth Fyodorovna, the Empress's sister, were taken to another mine shaft and thrown in alive.
Yeah.
So Tsar Nicholas was a cool guy, very cool tattoo, kind of a cool scar, spending some time in Japan, said, this isn't for me, I'm abdicating the fucking throne of Russia. Didn't come to a good end, and his family was absolutely burnt, covered in acid, and thrown down a goddamn mine shaft.
Classic.
History, classic fedora wearing fucking,
Elizabeth Ferodorova. It's very similar to Fedora. However you say your last name.
It is. On to modern times and the reason for this podcast. Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson were taken off the ban list with MLB. Finally, right? So there was an article written, I think it was for ESPN, by a guy named Dan Wetzel. I'm mentioning this now because even though I'm not going to read you the article word for word, I'm going to borrow heavily from it because I thought the points that this guy made were very, very good. So the only remaining purpose of the fan base, so Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe, and I think a couple other people, right, were taken off the ban list. So they are now eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Those two.
Yeah, and obviously Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose are no longer with us. So Dan writes, the only remaining purpose of the ban was to keep them from the immortality of being included in Cooperstown, which bills itself as, quote, the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. And it's those last two words that are important specifically to me, and museum. Museums exist to tell about history, and history is always fucking messy. So museums aren't designed for the sanitized version of events. They're just not. If you have a World War II museum, but you leave out the ovens, then you're not telling the fucking story about World War II, right? Like,
Sadly,
there's a way to put fucking people in, warts and all, and then you can make a decision about whether or not they should go to hell, right? Or whether or not they were the greatest fucking baseball player in the history of the world, which I'm not saying Pete Rose was. Do you know what I'm saying?
For sure. I've seen people say just put on his plaque, like, this guy gambled on baseball. He cheated.
So easy.
Yeah. Boom. There you go.
Should Rose and the others have done what they did? Of course not. Should they have been subject to any potential criminal or civil recourse for their actions? Absolutely. Was MLB within its right to suspend or punish them in other ways? Definitely. Fire them, fine them, do whatever the hell you want. But Rose, for example, like, he should never be allowed work in baseball again after it happened. Obviously, he's dead, right? And it was determined he bet on the Reds to win games while he was the manager. That's no bueno. But that doesn't mean 4,256 hits, 3 World Series titles, his MVP award, his 17 All-Star appearances. It's not like they didn't occur. And so did his gambling scandal, a 1990 guilty plea for filing false tax returns that cost him 5 months in prison, a 2017 sworn statement from a woman that he had committed statutory rape back in the 1970s, allegations he was never criminally charged for, but I'm just putting it out there because that's what we fucking do. All of that shit, the great and the terrible, are all part of the story of Pete Rose. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you threw that in there because that's another thing is if you're off the field conduct, like they don't know, that's another big factor in the Hall of Fame.
And this is how this guy had closed the article. Again, that's Dan Wetzel. He said, this is the Hall of Fame, not the pearly gates. It's about a nice day in central New York State with your family, complete with a gift shop. Like, it's not for them to tell us Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If this guy deserves to be in there for the things that he had done on the field, I think he should get in there. Do you believe that that's true with the steroid thing, which gave him...
Was
Like,
he found guilty?
No, yeah. So for people who were found guilty of taking steroids and that inflated their stats, like Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, those
Barry
guys.
Bonds, yeah.
Is that one of those things where you could see that's more of a cheating scandal that makes their numbers not real? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Barry Bonds without the juice doesn't have those
Then
numbers.
you're getting into
Like Pete Rose will always have those 4,000 this, 17 this, even if he bet on games. I think that if I was to do a deep dive into a lot of people in the Hall of Fame, I could find worse things in their past than betting on a game that they were managing.
Absolutely.
We know that to be the truth. We know about some despicable racists and, you know, Nazi sympathizers and eugenicists and all that stuff who reside in the Hall of Fame. And you know, like that is easy to kind of sweep under the rug or call hearsay or whatnot. Pete Rose, his stuff was so well publicized that I think it should continue to be well publicized, but also he deserves to be in there with the greats. Shoeless Joe Jackson, I don't know if you guys know a lot about him. I certainly do not. 8 Men Out, that type of shit, right? That's all I know. You never saw it.
No, you said eight men out, and I was like, huh? What?
Oh, really?
Sexual.
Oh, okay,
I was like,
yeah.
how you eat
And he
these
was Ray
guys out?
Liotta, right? Like Ray Liotta played him in Field of Dreams too, I believe.
I
That was
think you're
Shoeless.
right.
Wasn't it?
I think you're right.
I don't know.
I didn't see that
I might be
movie. I
wrong.
don't know.
You never saw Field of Dreams?
Oh,
No, I just got blasted yesterday because I've never seen Blues Brothers either.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I don't know if it held up, but yeah, Blues Brothers is a good movie. I would say
They
Field
were
of
all
Dreams.
talking about it in my office,
Blues-
and I was like, I never saw it. And
Blues Brothers is
what?
fun. You have to kind of catch the groove and get it.
Yeah,
And once it clicks, you can enjoy it.
that's
What?
Blues Brothers-y right
you think this guy doesn't get Blues Brothers? Right?
Well, there are like 11 of them. I don't get all of them.
I thought it was fine.
Right.
Like I don't get all of the renditions of Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
Some of them make no sense.
Yeah, the movie was a hodgepodge. I enjoyed it when I was a kid, but I could confidently say I haven't seen
Am I
it in
wrong?
40
I thought
years.
there was multiple movies.
I don't know.
I think
there was
there are.
Blues Brothers 2000. I know they got
Yep.
together, and it was after John Belushi died. I think Jim Belushi stepped in with
really?
Dan Aykroyd or something like that. So it was a terrible one. What was I saying? Oh, you know what? Well, I'm going to tell you about Shoeless Joe real quick. 3 facts about Shoeless Joe Jackson you may or may not know. He was illiterate. So when he was signing autographs, a lot of times an autograph from Shoeless Joe Jackson was signed by his wife,
Oh wow.
which is kind of cool. And then when he was at restaurants, rather than have someone read the menu to him, he'd wait for his teammates to order. And if something sounded good when they ordered it, then he would just order, be like, I'll have what Joe
I
said.
do that all the time.
Yeah, that's what my mom does.
Right?
My
Yeah.
mom
Do it
does
all the
that.
time.
I don't like it.
He's known as a legendary outfielder, and he had a cannon for an arm. He tried to pitch once, but he wound up throwing a wild pitch, and he had struck a batter's arm, and he broke the bone. He broke a guy's arm with a fucking errant pitch.
Yeah.
That's kind of badass. And the third thing, when he left baseball, he was disgraced, right? Through the World Series. He moved back to Greenville, South Carolina, opened up Joe Jackson's liquor store. One day, Ty Cobb and a sports writer named Grantland Rice, he was a big-time writer back there. So they came into the liquor store that Shoeless Joe had owned and was operating. Joe had made no recognition of Ty Cobb. So after making the purchase, Ty Cobb said to Shoeless Joe, "Don't you know me, Joe?" And Jackson replied, "Sure, I know you, Ty, but I wasn't sure you wanted to know me. A lot of them don't." Because he was so fucking disgraced. I feel bad for Shoeless Joe now. I just want him in the Hall of Fame. So I'm very, very.
Now, why did they wait with him? Why wouldn't they have put him in?
I guess if you let Pete Rose in
No.
posthumously.
I meant, what if you just did Joe?
Oh,
Or when
okay.
he was alive.
Yeah. Well, I
Like,
mean,
do you think they felt the same? Because Joe didn't have the sex assault thing, right?
no. Well,
But
Pete was just for the gambling. And
Well, right, but I meant, wasn't Joe?
No, yeah, well, he's way through the World
Joe,
Series.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that's
It's
way
fucking-
worse than betting on betting on
Like betting on a
baseball, you know?
random game that you're managing versus
But he's
from
Hall
the
of
World
Fame
Series.
material anyway.
100%.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
And if you look back at that game where he allegedly threw
I mean,
the game.
Pete Rose lied about it for years.
Yeah.
So it's like the same thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, to be honest with
It's
you,
not the World Series.
I wonder what the butterfly effect will be on this and who all of a sudden will come out of the woodworks and start being let in the Hall of Fames. And I'm here for it. Like, I'm here for it if the Hall of Fame wants to put in a felon wing. Like, that'd be something that I
Yeah.
would spend a half a day in. You know?
I mean, Ray Lewis killed a man, and he's in.
Exactly.
Oh, that'll
Like,
start a Twitter war.
Yeah.
That's an excellent thing. Is Joe Paterno in the College Football Hall of Fame?
Ray Lewis. I don't know. I just.
Oh, I imagine he is, isn't he?
Should they
only
have taken
thing-
OJ's Heisman back?
Right.
The only thing is that if when they opened it, if they put a clause in there saying like, if you're unethical, you don't make it in.
If there's an ethics clause,
I
like
don't
I think
know.
that's what the Heisman does. I think
Yeah.
there is an ethics
So he
clause.
was
with-
inducted in 2007. So I think if you're inducted way before this happens, I think you're
Okay.
safe, right? Because who did you say before that?
I said Paterno,
No,
then I said OJ.
So OJ, I think, also won the Heisman well before any
but
of this
didn't they
happened.
take it back from
No, you're thinking of Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush? They
Yeah.
took it back from
gave it-
Reggie Bush.
Which they felt
Another-
real bad about. 'cause
Another SC
I
scumbag.
do know they
it's
took
like, sorry,
down
you gave your
OJ's
mom a car.
Yeah.
I do know they took down OJ's picture from the DAC.
Yes.
That I remember.
Twice.
They tried to
Because I got drunk one
disassociate.
day and put whipped cream on it.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say you.
Yeah.
That was not.
I
That was
think.
one of our Christmas parties. Somebody got a little ahead of themselves.
I
Yeah.
think they gave.
You and Mike. Remember that guy, Mike Felix?
Yeah. Felix. We should tear it up.
I think they gave Reggie Bush his Heisman back though.
They did.
But it meant they
Yeah,
were
okay,
sad.
okay,
They were like, sorry about that,
Yeah.
Reg.
Yeah. Anyway, I would like to see everybody kind of get in and have their dirty laundry aired. And again, not allegation laundry.
Exactly.
I
That's my
got
only-
that,
that's
like
my
concrete
only
stuff. So what would you do for Ray Lewis?
Well, Ray Lewis, if you don't believe that he killed a man, he also cheated and was like taking deer antler spray and.
No, he's in though, isn't he?
Oh, he's so.
Oh,
in,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we talk about what people should be watching. Last week, I had the pleasure of having Dale Jr. in here and his sister, Kelly Earnhardt Miller. I sat down with them for over almost an hour. It's on last week's Rubbin' Is Racing. It's actually, people have told me that was a good interview. They're releasing the documentary Earnhardt about his dad, and it drops this week. So you're listening, we're taping Twisted History on a Tuesday. We'll drop it this week. So this week, the first 2 episodes will drop, I think, on the 22nd of May. And then the following week on the 29th, the other 2 episodes will drop. It's all on Amazon Prime because Amazon Prime is picking up coverage of NASCAR for the next 5 races.
Hell yeah.
Dale's going to be in the booth. So it was an honor for him and his sister to come in and talk to me. They did like Good Morning America and Us,
Yeah.
which is fucking stupid. And they were so open and just great about it. We had a really good conversation. And so they invited Annie and I down to the premiere of the documentary, a little red carpet event. So we're going to fly down to Charlotte on Thursday.
You got an outfit? You got a bolo tie picked out?
I
for
might
it?
go bolo tie now. Like I wasn't thinking bolo tie, but now just to do it. Might
I
go-
mean, that's the only thing you can wear to that event.
yeah,
You got to.
yeah. So yeah, watch it. Earnhardt, we watched it.
It was good.
And I don't know if people
Effective.
recognize the whole story of Dale Sr. I know a lot of people who wear the T-shirts of him have no fucking clue who he is.
Oh, praise
Right,
Dale.
right.
You know, it's sort of like, oh, what band is that? Name 3 songs. And like most kids are like, I don't know. And Nirvana, I thought was a,
Trucking?
yeah. Oh no, no.
Oh,
yeah.
are you talking about Grateful
no,
Dead?
No, it just
I don't.
in general.
I can't name 3 songs.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Friend of the Devil.
Do you think that's because Dale is himself, Jr., is older now? And
Why
as
he
in-
was so.
No, you're saying people didn't recognize that shirt. Is it because it's also because... Are we talking about Dale? Ray's Hill?
Yeah, so I think the Raise Hell Praise Dale that people wear and in general NASCAR stuff has just been fashionable.
Right.
Where people who haven't seen, and I think it's cool as shit. I'm not yucking anybody's yum here.
I'm old school. I got you the Winston shirt.
Yeah,
It's almost like the people that wear Yankees hats and don't know
yeah.
Yankees.
Or
which is
like
great.
there's a lot of people who wear like the Nevermind sweatshirt
Right,
from
right.
Nirvana, or Bridget's like, can I get this AC/DC? I was like, you can get 5 of them. Name me 2 songs. You know what I mean? Like something like that. But I,
Bandwagoners.
yeah, a little bit, which is fine. So I'm hoping people watch this because
It was
Dale
very good.
Dale was as big as any member of any sport. He was as big as Jordan was. When he died, Tom Brokaw said, "I feel like Elvis or Princess Di just died."
It's huge.
Like, yeah, it was huge.
We watched it. We
We watched
the
all
race.
4. We were watching the race where he died. It's the first NASCAR race I ever watched. It's the Daytona 500. When he hit the wall, it wasn't that big of a crash
No.
compared to some of the stuff you see nowadays. But he didn't have the Hans device, which everybody wears now. There hasn't been a single Cup Series driver who died since Dale had hit the wall 20 some odd years ago. And safer barriers have been put in so they actually crunch instead of going straight into a wall. So you wouldn't have even guessed that the crash that killed Dale Earnhardt Sr. was a fatal crash, but it snapped his neck, allegedly.
Oh, in what, 180?
So he was coming out of turn 4. So they definitely slow down, and they do around 200 on the straightaway. Yeah. So I don't know how fast he was going coming around turn 4. Yeah. But one of his pit crew guys had said as soon as I saw him hit the wall, I didn't know how bad it was. But when his car started to just drift back into the infield, I was like, Dale would never let his car do that. He's dead. Like I was like, fuck. Damn. And then they came in and started talking to us about, about their dad and not being a great dad either. Like they were very, very absolutely open. And I thought that was your point, John. So much time has passed that you can sort of shit on your dad a little bit or show some of the warts that one of the greatest NASCAR drivers ever had. He was a very good driver. He wasn't a very good dad for the most part in the traditional sense of the dad. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He was a workaholic.
I guess what I mean, too, is some young NASCAR fans might not have watched Dale Jr.'s career also.
And that's why
you kind of may have missed it at this point.
They did a documentary that was voiced by Paul Newman, and it might have just been called Dale. And that was like the definitive documentary of Dale Earnhardt Sr. But that documentary is now, 10, 15 years old. So they did this documentary with Ron Howard's. What's Ron Howard's thing?
Oh, that's awesome.
What's his company, Ron Howard?
Oh, I don't know.
Illumination? No. What the
Who cares?
No, his production company.
No, it sounds awesome.
Yeah, so
Imagine Entertainment.
Imagine Entertainment.
Yeah.
Imagine came in. Dale's like they took every piece of picture, snapshot, home movie, all that stuff from us, and they put it into this 4 hours of it. So it's not a ad for it. I don't give a shit if you watch it, to be quite honest with you. But if you want to know about this guy who is on the Rushmore, he won 7 championships. Like he won 7 Cup Series championships. It went to Cup Series back then, but it's a pretty cool one, right? You enjoyed it.
I loved it.
Yeah.
But I watched the race and I was so shocked by what happened. I didn't even realize until that Dale Jr. came in second in that race. Dale was riding third. His son was second. Michael Waltrip was first. I don't think a lot of people, it was so.
I don't think his son was in that one.
He was.
No,
he came in second.
They were P1, 2, and 3 for a while.
What?
Yeah. So Dale was Dale Sr. said, we're going out on this Daytona 500 and we're winning it. We're sticking together and winning it. So it was P1 was Michael Waltrip, followed by Junior and then Senior. Senior's throwing
Waltrip's first.
Yes.
Yeah,
first
that's
win.
what I was.
And Darrell Waltrip, his brother, was up in the booth crying because his brother just fucking won.
That's what I remember.
And then all of a sudden, the most popular driver in the history of the sport since, Richard Petty is being fucking helicoptered out dead. Crazy shit, man. So, and I don't know what the comp is to that. It's not Kobe and the Chopper. Like you try to think about that. I don't know what the comp is.
There's
one basketball player who died, but he wasn't Dale by any.
Don't think there is.
He was notable.
Who?
Sorry. The guy he was doing.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like who?
He was taking medication, right? You would know who he was, but
Len Bias.
I was gonna say Len Bias, but
that's the second one.
Medication, brother.
I'm gonna say my dad.
I'll bring it up.
Your dad. So I had said to them the similarities between Kelly Earnhardt Miller, who when the dad died, she then came and worked for DEI, which is Dale Earnhardt Industries, which means something different nowadays.
Yeah, awkward.
And her dad just died. She had to take the helm there. It's similar to what had happened with Annie when her dad died. And she, similar to Annie, she killed it. Because after Dale died, you could put the number 3 on a fucking dildo and you couldn't keep them on the shelves.
Right.
That's a pretty cool idea, actually. Intimidator, right?
But
no, put it on a toaster, put it on all that stuff.
Super fast.
They're just selling millions and millions of dollars worth of stuff. So she became like the business person, whereas Dale Jr. wanted to be his dad and stuff. I don't know. I thought it was pretty fucking fascinating. Yeah. And he's a good man. Dale's I can go in detail on how good I think he's the second most Make-A-Wish guy behind John Cena. And John Cena will never be touched.
No.
John Cena does thousands of those fucking things, but Dale does a bunch too.
So when does this drop?
It drops on the 22nd. 22nd. And then the first 2 episodes, and then the second 2 episodes on the 29th. And stick with it, because the last 2 episodes, when the dad dies, is pretty. And it's not like I'm spoiler alert, right? It's, make sure you watch Lincoln, but make sure you tune in when he gets to the theater.
Do you know what year it was?
2001 when he passed away. Yeah. And then I think Dale Jr. won the Daytona 500 in 05.
So he won.
Oh, I
He
don't-
won the fall race. I think.
Following race, I should say.
I think he won the fall race that year.
Okay.
I think he came back and fucking won it.
Oh.
again,
September,
like
right? Was it
yeah.
September, October.
So it's like him versus Jeff Gordon and whatnot. There's so many storylines going on that it's very, very interesting. Man, I don't know why I pivoted to NASCAR so much. But anyway,
Old twisted history.
yeah. Throughout history, many talented artists, writers, and musicians were overlooked during their lifetimes. This is one of the things that I was looking at, the same way that Pete Rose never got his flowers, and it looks like he's going to get them posthumously. Shoeless Joe Jackson, same story. What are the greatest examples of people who had done great things and were just never recognized for it while they were alive? That's what I wanted to kind of talk about today as far as, posthumous flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about it, Van Gogh jumps out at me. And we've talked about him before. We talked about him during the Twisted History of Heists because one of his paintings was stolen. We talked about him in the Twisted History of Drunks. We may have talked about him at another time. But as a refresher, Vincent was not only a heavy drinker, he was a drinker of absinthe, which is the real deal shit, right? And he ate very little, but always drank while he was painting. Modern psychiatrists determined that Vincent van Gogh was likely to have suffered from a large array of conditions, including schizophrenia, syphilis, and manic depression. And also many believe that Van Gogh was autistic. And here's the fact to always remember about the man that most people cite as the greatest painter of all time, along with either Picasso or Michelangelo. Those are the easiest answers. For people who've never owned a painting, myself, oh yeah, Van Gogh, Michelangelo, Picasso.
knows him, yeah.
Yeah. So Van Gogh didn't put a pencil or a paintbrush to canvas until he was 27. And even though his career lasted only just over a decade because he died at 37 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chest, in that 10-year span, he created approximately 2,100 pieces of art, including 860 oil paintings and over 1,000 sketched drawings. That's all in 10 years, and one of those years of the 10 was spent in a mental asylum. That's prolific, right? 27 to 37 was his whole fucking career. 4 of the top 30 most expensive paintings in history are by Van Gogh, but he only sold one painting while he was alive. It was called The Red Vineyards at Arles, which Anna Bach, the sister of a friend, purchased for 400 francs shortly before Van Gogh passed in 1890. 400 francs today would be about $2,000. So Vincent van Gogh, no, that's all he fucking made. That's modern day $2,000. He made 400 francs for one painting. 4 of the top 30 paintings in the world right now, most expensive, are his. He didn't see a dime from it. He painted a picture for the doctor that took care of him when he cut his ear off. Somebody had brought him to a doctor's office. The doctor had kept him there for like a week or so as he was nursing. He didn't cut his whole ear off. He cut part of his ear off. So to thank the doctor, he painted a picture of the doctor and sent it to him. The doctor was like, I fucking don't like it. Wound up using it to cover a hole in his chicken coop. Years later, people followed the footsteps of Vincent van Gogh, found the doctor, found the fucking chicken coop, refurbished the painting, and the painting is now valued at $50 million. And it sits in the State Pushkin Museum of Fine Arts in Moscow. So that painting was worth $50 million. He made $2,000 while he was alive. I think that's probably one of the biggest misses of all time. Like, like you hear stuff like Kate Bush, who's still alive and well, having that second coming of running up that hill with that Stranger Things show. Yeah. Like Kate Bush was this prog rock, girl that I used to listen to when I was in college. She had like fanzines. My roommate Daryl was crazy about Kate Bush. I always thought her name was kind of funny. Kate Bush, what does she shave it? Like that type of thing. But like to see that happen later on, like people kind of appreciate your work 30 years later is a great feeling. Vincent van Gogh never got that shit.
Right.
Yeah. Neither did Galileo. Galileo Galilei, he died in 1642, but his work wasn't allowed to be fully published until 1835. his work wasn't allowed to see the light of day for nearly 200 years thanks to an injunction by the Catholic Church. And his crime was he built a telescope and proved that the earth revolved around the sun, which went against the earth-centric teachings of the Catholics at the time. It's huge fucking blasphemy, right? Over 50 years before Galileo began to write some of his most important works, Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish guy, was the first scientist to propose that the earth actually revolved around the sun, or what we now know as the heliocentric theory of the universe. But Copernicus died in 1543, the same year as his work was published, so that spared Copernicus the outrage of some religious leaders who later condemned that heliocentric view of the universe as being heretical, as being heresy. Galileo wasn't so lucky. When he was trying to publish his similar works, the Catholic Church saw it and says, not so fucking fast. They labeled him a heretic. They sentenced him to house arrest in 1633 for what was referred to as the Galileo affair. He finally got one of his books partially published into the mass market in 1638, just 4 years before his death. In 1668, Isaac Newton then picked up the torch and builds his own reflecting telescope, picking up where Galileo left off. So Copernicus dies. Galileo gets put on fucking house arrest. And later on, Isaac Newton had picked up that torch. Albert Einstein referred to Galileo as the father of modern science. Stephen Hawking once said that Galileo bears more of the responsibility for the birth of modern science than anybody else. But he didn't get a full apology from the Catholic Church until Pope John Paul II in 1992, more than 300 years after his death, finally said, "We're sorry we fucked with Galileo." It took 300 fucking years for this guy to get his flowers. And that's Galileo. That's a guy that we all know about. It's Van Gogh. It's people that we all fucking know about. And the only reason that we know about him is because we decided to after they died. They never got their fucking flowers. That annoys me for some reason.
I like how the Vatican gets to some bookkeeping 300 years later.
Yeah,
you never did this?
Yeah, exactly.
Get it out there.
No, I think they tried to do it like each one, and it just kept getting shot down until 1992. I think we're going to come back to the Pope in a little while because there's been some recent headlines in case you haven't seen it. Another guy that I think is very, very recognizable is Edgar Allan Poe. He's considered by many to be either one of the greatest writers or at least a major figure in American literature, particularly for his contributions to the short story, poetry, and the horror genres. But his personal life, characterized by poverty, illness, and substance abuse, the guy was fucked from the very start. His dad went out for a pack of smokes when he was 1, and he never came home. Then his mother died when he was 2. That tends to leave a dent. Right? Your dad leaves you at 1, maybe you don't know about it. Your mom dies when you're 2, maybe you don't know about it, but it's going to leave a fucking dent. His real name was just Edgar Poe, but he was taken in by John and Frances Allen, so he added their last name to his. Edgar Poe became Edgar Allan Poe. He dropped out of college because he couldn't afford it and because of mounting gambling debts. I think he was a dice player. He married his 13-year-old first cousin when he was 27. Ew. His most famous work, The Raven, was published when he was in his mid-30s, but he was dead by 40, and that's where the real smear campaign started.
I was going to say this while you're blowing your nose, but Edgar Allan Poe's first pen name, a Bostonian.
Really?
Yes, he published his first story under that name, a Bostonian.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Cool.
I love that.
I like that.
He was a household name after The Raven, even though he only made $9 for writing it. But his funeral was a small, forgotten affair. So few people showed up, the Reverend didn't even bother reading a sermon. Poe's family only sprung for the cheapest possible coffin. It had no handles, no lining, and not even a cushion for Poe's head.
I'm kind of fine with that.
Buried in a pauper's grave?
Yeah, just give me the cheap stuff.
We were just talking about
We were
this.
It's so
thinking
expensive.
we were thinking about doing a wicker one.
A wicker one.
Like biodegrades, and you turn into a tree when you're.
No, just to save money. Like, I don't give a fuck. I mean, maybe just burn me too.
We have very cool conversations,
If
don't we?
you're right. Oh, going
Once you
home.
turn 50. Yeah, how do you feel about caskets?
Going home to my parents, and they're like, "Well, this is a book of stuff in case something happens to your dad." And it's like they just have like a game plan written down. It's like, well, this is morbid. I'm just
Right.
yeah. But if you get cremated, do you have to do a coffin?
No.
No, you do an
Urns.
urn.
No, I do that. Yeah, I do that. But I feel like getting cremated is still expensive. They got you.
Is it?
They got you.
I think to have it done right. but we could do it because we have the cowboy cauldron in the back.
Yeah.
So I can get you in there,
Got the hole in the
Vibsy.
bottom.
I'm down. Is that like a green egg?
No, it's a cauldron, like bubble toilet trouble.
Like a kettle
It's a
corn.
big cast iron thing with 3 things
Hell
that just
yeah.
hangs there. We could throw Vibsy right in. We'll dry you out first, like jerky. We
100%.
could throw you right in there and whatever you want to do with the ashes.
Yeah.
Spread them out at an Indiana Fever game.
Oh fuck yeah.
Are you Catholic? You're gonna get buried, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to get buried. I'm actually thinking about doing the whole thing where I cryogenically freeze my head.
Oh, I like that. Just the head.
Just the head, so they can bring me back.
We'll be doing Twisted History in the year 2084.
Right, yeah.
What other happy things can we talk about?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I got this lesion. So after he dies, right,
Edgar
has
Allan
a shitty funeral, and then his literary rival is a guy named Rufus Griswold. No one's ever heard of him.
What a name.
But he wrote a high-profile obituary under a pseudonym and filled it with lies that cast Poe as a lunatic and as a person who walked the streets in madness or melancholy with lips moving in indistinct curses. The long obituary appeared in the New York Tribune. New York Tribune was the shit at the time. It was bigger than the Post at the Times or anything like that. And it was published on the day Poe was buried in Baltimore. The obituary began, Edgar Allan Poe is dead. He died in Baltimore the day before yesterday. The announcement may startle many, but few will be grieved by it. Ooh, that's terrible.
Sad.
Yeah. Griswold also wrote a biographical article of Poe called Memoir of the Author, which depicted Poe as a depraved, drunken, drug-addled madman, and many of his claims were either outright lies or obvious distortions. Griswold's book nevertheless became a popularly accepted biographical source. This was in part because it was the only full biography available and was widely reprinted, and in part because readers thrilled at the thought of reading works by an evil man. Like, it made it sexy to read The Raven, knowing the guy who wrote it was a fucking bad boy, when in actuality, he wasn't. He was certainly fucked up, but he wasn't a bad guy.
I was going to say this probably helped his sick, twisted image of...
But it's all posthumous.
Right.
Like, that's all. So letters that Griswold presented as proof were later revealed as forgeries, but the damage was done. It took decades before he was finally respected as one of the earliest writers of short stories, the inventor of the modern detective story, and an innovator in the genre of science fiction. And the only reason the Baltimore NFL franchise is named the Ravens since 1996, nearly 150 years after his death, was because of Edgar Allan Poe, and he wrote The Raven in Baltimore. Otherwise, that team was almost called either the Baltimore Marauders or the Baltimore Americans.
Why all the hate?
I
mean, I get the 13-year-old. Trust me, I get the.
No, but this guy made up all these lies about
I know,
him.
but
yeah,
I mean-
because it was his biggest rival.
But
the guy couldn't
that's
hold his
different.
jock. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It
There's
was petty.
something. Yeah,
Isn't
I'm wondering
pettiness
if there was more of a relationship between the two.
I think the pen was so fucking mighty back then because, you didn't have 60 different outlets pumping into your ear.
Yeah,
So
but
this
this
guy
is
was able
kind
to
of,
do it.
This seems more at like a different type of hatred.
Yeah, like Mozart, Salieri, that type of thing.
Ooh,
Right?
Amadeus, great movie.
Boom, there it is.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Seems
was-
a little bit more targeted
Yeah.
I was just-
relationship.
I was gonna say, isn't this kind of what happened to Ty Cobb allegedly? Like
I think
everyone's like,
so.
oh, he's a terrible, horrible racist, and then it just ends up it was one baseball writer that didn't like him that was just posting,
Or
writing
was that what? I don't
stories
remember.
about how.
Yeah, so a guy wrote a book about how it was like his image was smeared. essentially.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So I don't know what prevails.
He was a nasty man, Ty Cobb, right?
Well, no, that's what everyone thinks because this guy wrote
Tommy
the
Lee
book.
Jones.
But I don't know if it's true. I don't know.
I don't know either. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. Like, I do know that he was in Shoeless Joe Jackson's liquor store, and Joe said, I didn't know if you wanted me to know you,
Right.
Ty. Everybody else left me.
And Ty Cobb didn't. We just talked about it a couple episodes ago where he had a lucky black boy that he carried around.
Yes,
Right,
yeah. Kept
So
under
maybe
his
he wasn't
bed.
the best guy
Yeah,
ever,
yeah.
but-
He slept under his bed, right? Yeah, that's true.
But it was
Shit. We've said so many fucking things in here over the years. Like, you know what I mean? Anyway,
Yeah,
so
I thought you were going to talk about the Jam Boy, which is a myth theory.
yeah,
that we-
supposedly it's a
Right.
So he's to cover.
Now you have to talk about that. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I can.
Nope.
These-
Go back and listen. Go back.
So many other artists were never appreciated during their lifetimes, but perhaps the most popular example of another writer who never got her flowers was Anne Frank. I don't know why, but I almost forgot that Anne Frank didn't make it. Like, I think that a lot of people, if you were to go around this office and were to ask people about Anne Frank, do you think they would have thought that she survived the Holocaust?
I don't think people know how she died.
She died of typhus at Bergen-Belsen at the age of 15. So somebody dropped a dime on him. They don't know exactly who to this day. And her family was swept up out of that attic, and they were sent to concentration camps. And she had gotten typhus in Bergen-Belsen. A couple of them were put to death right when they got there because they were either older or infirm. She made it through, went in, got typhus, and died at the young age of 15. So that diary was all that was left of her. I don't know if people think that, hey, this is what happened to me during the Holocaust.
That's what I'm saying. I think a lot of
she
people
went on
think
a,
she
went on a book
away.
tour. Yeah, you know.
Where she had them published.
Right.
You know.
But she didn't get her flowers for a much different reason.
I believe her father was the one who got them published.
Yeah, I think so. I was going to say, I
Right?
think he
Was it?
survived, and then
Yeah.
Because
Otto,
her sister,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
her
Yes.
sister, like the day that they were liberated, and she fell out of her bed and died.
Oh, wow.
What?
Like,
Get out.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not reading it from something, so I'd have to refresh my memory.
Yeah.
But I believe the day that she was sick, but the day that the sister was to be moved, she got up, and she fell out of her bed and just wasn't strong enough.
Yeah. That sad stinks. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying because I think some people, if you're reading someone's diary, you'd think that they would know, but in theory,
Yeah.
she didn't know that anybody would ever read her diary,
Yeah.
which I think is embarrassing to people.
That is a little bit crazy because she does talk about some stuff in there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. When you think about it, she talked about the entire thing, wrote the entire thing without knowing really what was going on.
Right.
Oh.
And that every fucking school kid 50 years later would be reading it.
doing a
Yeah.
report on it. Yeah.
Crazy, yeah. And here is one woman from history whose death made her famous in the worst way. If you've ever studied something that Annie had mentioned from the beginning of this podcast, there's a phenomenon called the bystander effect. There's a good chance you've heard of Kitty Genovese if you've studied the bystander effect. While walking home one night in Queens, Kitty was stabbed by a guy named Winston Moseley. What happened next is not entirely known, but witnesses report hearing her scream for help, and Moseley fled the scene. Kitty attempted to drag herself to safety, but Moseley returned a few minutes later to rape her and rob her before delivering a fatal blow. As gruesome as this tragedy is, it's not why Kitty's death is so infamous. According to the New York Times, 37 witnesses either saw or heard the crime happen, but made no attempt to intervene. If just one of those people had acted or called the police, there's a chance Moseley would not have returned for Kitty and she could have survived. But the idea that someone else would help, leaving individuals at no fault, became known as the bystander effect, or Kitty Genovese syndrome. And now Kitty Genovese posthumously has gone down in history as the woman that no one fought to save. That's brutal. Like, that's what your name is synonymous with. Kitty Genovese is the woman that nobody fought to save. 37. And then you had brought up when we did that one thing about that historic scumbag who was killed in his car, and all the people said they couldn't see it because they were underneath the pool table.
Right.
But meanwhile, it's just a town full of people who wanted that cocksucker dead. Like, you know what I mean? This is the exact opposite. It's like, hey, Annie, did you hear that? Yeah, but I'm sure Vibs heard it next door. He'll call the cops. No, I think John's one of those cops. You know, John calls the cops on us all the time. You know, it's the bystander
Or somebody
effect.
shouts, somebody call a cop, and they just think because they shouted, 10 people did it.
Yeah. I got the shit kicked out of me in South Bend my freshman year of college, and I was almost embarrassed to ask all the people who just watched it happen to help me out.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And nobody did, right? And it's like crazy how that thing had worked.
Right.
I got another one. On Memorial Day weekend, 2010 maybe, Raymond Zach walked into the waters of Robert Crown Memorial Beach in California, and he stood neck deep in water 150 yards offshore. So very, shallow water, walked out a football field and a half, and he was only up to his neck. This guy was mentally disturbed. He had a foster parent who wasn't that much older than him, who had took care of him, but he had some problems. So he walks out, and his foster mother, Dolores Berry, called 911 and said that she couldn't swim and that he was out there trying to drown himself. Okay? The city of Alameda firefighters and police responded, but they did not enter the water. The firefighters called for a United States Coast Guard boat to respond, but the boat that the Coast Guard sent drafted too deep for the shallow water off the beach, so no useful boat ever arrived. According to police, Alameda police expected firefighters to enter the water, but firefighters later say that they did not have current training and certifications to perform land-based water rescue and that the funding for that program was cut. So the cops are like, are you going to go get him? And they're like, no. Are you going to go get him? They're like, no. They called the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard sent the wrong fucking boat, and neither the firefighters or the police went in to help this guy out. He's 150 yards away, and there's a dot of his head showing, and the beach is filled with people, all bystanders. Nobody went out to find him.
You know who would have gotten him?
Who's that?
Our florist, Glenn.
Oh, yeah, Glenn, absolutely.
Strong swimmer.
Yeah.
He wasn't, but he made he was one of those people on a beach when he saw someone drowning. Someone got sucked into the riptide, and he created with everybody on. He got everybody to create a chain. He was the last person, got the person, passed them over, and he got sucked
Swept
in.
out and died. The guy who was a florist for our wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How nuts is that?
What a feel-good episode, huh? What a feel-good fucking episode.
I was like, this guy is the best.
He
And
died a hero.
Glenn was awesome.
He
Yeah.
was
Damn.
awesome.
Yeah. The true Glenny balls. Not this one.
Right, yeah.
Dozens of civilians on the beach and watching from their homes across from the beach did not enter the water, apparently expecting public safety officers to conduct a rescue. Finally, a bystander took off her shoes, preparing to enter the water, but was told by police not to let public safety handle it. Eventually, after an hour of nobody doing anything, Zach collapsed in the water, apparently from hypothermia. Even then, nobody entered the water for over 20 minutes, even as the body drifted face down back towards the beach. Finally, another young woman entered the water, pulled Zach to shore, and he died at a local hospital. People just didn't do anything.
Right.
The event made international headlines, and a member of Zach's family filed claims against the city of Alameda, Alameda County, and eventually sued agencies over Jack's death, both the fire department, the Coast Guard, and the police department. In early 2013, a judge dismissed the lawsuit, saying public safety officials had no legal duty to save Zach. And Raymond Zach became another case of the bystander theory.
I think we talked about that in here. Like, cops don't have to help you if they don't.
They
want
don't
to.
have to.
Crazy.
It's nothing, like there's nothing contractual about it, I guess. And again, I didn't do too big of a dive into that other than the stuff that I just read you. But holy shit. Let me know if I'm stretching here. But doesn't the bystander theory remind you a lot of the alleged good Germans who had no idea that Hitler was killing Jews by the millions? Doesn't that sort of seem like it? Like that one episode of Band of Brothers, Why We Fight, when they all of a sudden took the local townspeople and they brought them to the concentration camp that they had discovered. They were like, oh, shit, I did not know. You know, it's just a weird smell, but otherwise I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that seems sort of bystanderish, too.
Yeah, business was booming, so they didn't question it.
Well, I don't know if it's the same because one is a choice. One is just a react. Like one is not innocent, but
Yeah.
if you genuinely believe, like you called 911, right? You're like everybody. 2013,
Yeah.
everybody had cell phones. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like somebody didn't call 911. The police were there.
Yeah.
Coast Guard was there. Fire department was there. I wouldn't think to run out and swim out. And I'm a swimmer.
And I would let, yeah.
See, we get to talk about my favorite movie again, Zone of Interest.
I was gonna ask if Zone of Interest was
So-
about this.
It's basically about this. Where I mean, have you seen it?
No. What the fuck, Clark?
I watched.
What is going on?
I watched the first 30 minutes, and I was
What do
like,
you do
I
when you
get
go
it.
home?
I don't know.
Add to my list. Okay. Now I don't even know. Oh, but I was gonna say in 1945 we've talked about this. People aren't watching TV, right, and radio and on Twitter.
Right.
So you can be your head in the sand. Like you're just like surviving, right, and claim ignorance to all these atrocities because you're not like watching documentaries. Like
I don't know. I think
Meaning it's a
they
little
got
bit of different
newspapers and they
brain.
got, like you said, radio. I think
but they're not talking about the Holocaust.
if it doesn't affect them, they're like, all right, well, I'm
Yeah.
fine. I can just kind of keep
Right.
keep surviving, like you said, and keep coasting. And
Right. Well, they themselves are in a precarious position to a certain degree.
But aren't you fascinated by the fact that
Meaning the mothers and children and like the people surrounding the Nazis.
some of them had to have known?
Yeah.
Like,
they definitely.
How do you not know? I'm sorry. How do
yeah.
you not know?
There's a great scene where the mother I'm just explaining the movie to you at this point.
I hear you.
It's just unbelievable.
Expertly shot movie though.
Yeah.
From a cinematic perspective, that's what.
But they disagree, meaning the mother. They get a visitor, and she's like, "How can you guys live here? This is insane."
Like I even watched Inglourious Bastards the other day,
Right.
Yeah.
and the French guy who had Soshana on under his house, a Jewish sympathizer and whatnot. Like people knew what was going on. I just there's a modern name for something like that. Someone who is obsessed with or romanticizes the Wehrmacht, sometimes to the point of denying their historical war crimes. Those people are called Wehraboos, which I think sounds terrible, but they exist. So the Wehrmacht were the General Army, Navy, and Air Force for Germany. That was their thing. Whereas the SS was like a special forces, right? Like it was totally different. So the SS was a paramilitary group, and the Wehrmacht had 18 million soldiers, and the SS had maybe 800,000 members. So a lot of the more devious shit was carried on by that smaller percentage of the paramilitary group. I totally get that. But there's like the Rommel myth. Like Edwin Rommel is known as this military genius. I read your book, Rommel, during the Patton movie and whatnot. He's known as genius. And Rommel gets a pass in history books too. And because he was allegedly, how Rommel died?
Was he the Desert Fox?
Yeah, so Rommel was the Desert Fox. He was allegedly involved with one of the assassination attempts on Hitler's life. You ever see the movie Valkyrie? Like
Yes.
that type of shit?
Yep.
So Rommel was allegedly involved with one of that. Not allegedly. It was enough that Hitler then went to him and said, listen, I know you tried to kill me. There's two ways we can go about this. We can execute you. And just know that we're probably going to execute most of your family afterwards. Or you can come for a drive and take the cyanide pill, and we say you died, that you killed yourself. So that's what Rommel did. He wound up killing himself to save his family.
Damn.
Yeah, so, so it's one of those things. There are 42 documented attempts on Hitler's life, and over 5,000 people were put to death in connection with those attempts. And out of those 5,000 people, 8 of them were hanged by piano wire by request of Hitler. He said, I want them all fucking hung up by piano wire. So it sort of cuts your head off while you're fucking hanging there. I don't know where it goes with the like sympathizers. I don't know how to quantify that because we just saw the election of the new Pope. Where the fuck was Vatican City during, World War II? Vatican City knew everything that was going on in the world. I know it's, looked upon as just this place that has golden toilets now, but that was like, certainly Rome was being fucking burnt to the ground all around them. And Vatican City was like, you know what? We're going to take that approach where it's not bad, but they never mentioned Hitler.
I don't see it.
They never
It
mentioned
happened.
Jews by name. I don't know if that makes you complicit. And then
Yes, I agree. I think it does.
and then a couple of them, like one of the Australian cardinals was one of the guys that got like Eichmann out or something afterwards. Like that tunnel that got some of the Nazis out to South America basically ran underneath the Vatican.
I think they do things that they think absolves them, and then I don't know. This is a whole nother debate.
It is, but my point is that a lot of people turn a blind eye, including today in the United States. I'm sure some people think that, turn a blind eye to things that they don't find overly important. But the way that it happened during the Holocaust absolutely blows my mind. I mean, there was a guy who was a Holocaust refugee. His name is Gustav Brunn, Brunn. He arrived in Baltimore with barely anything but the spice grinder that he had as a spice merchant in Germany. He was a Jewish spice merchant in Germany, and when he found out that shit was hitting the fan, it wasn't even that. He fled Nazi Germany like the day after Kristallnacht. Remember the night of broken glass that we spoke about one time, where all of a sudden some German guy was killed by a Polish Jew. So Hitler was like, go have a fucking field day. They threw like 30,000 people into concentration camps in that night, burned 1,400 fucking synagogues. I think maybe only 100 people died that night, but they think 600 suicides were a result of it. It's one of the worst nights in fucking the history of the world. So that's when Brune got the hell out of Dodge, took his spice grinder, came to the United States, got a job with McCormick Spices. McCormick Spices finds out he's a Jew. They fire him and say, go to a Jewish charity. He says, fuck you, starts his own spice company. That spice company becomes Old Bay. 5 years after he dies, Old Bay gets bought back by McCormick for $24 million. Right? Like that's, wow, that puts a bow on it. I'm not going any further than that.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, because that kind of puts a bow. And that's happening here in the United States. You know, why was Old Bay only $24 million? It's like 1990.
Why was the other company, McCormick, allowed to buy them?
I don't know. MCK was, I think finally, it was my first million share print as a block trader. No big deal. But it was one of those things, you know, they bought them for $24 million because back then Old Bay was so regional. It was just East Coast in and around there for one thing. Now you can buy Old Bay ice cream if you want to, you know, so it's just one of those things. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of point out some of the stuff that had happened through history in this episode where people didn't get their flowers until it was too late, or people turned a blind eye until it was too late for a lot of good people. So that's the only thing that I tried to do in this episode. What do we got going on? You got this beer games thing going on right now.
Beer game show going on. About to go to war with the Knicks fans. It's busy
right,
time.
right.
Busy time.
Yeah, so Knicks Pacers will start basically when this thing drops.
Yeah.
So we'll be in the thick of it already. So you're going to be on all those game watches.
Yeah, we're streaming, but more importantly, go watch Beer Game Show.
More importantly, yeah.
It's fun.
And it's everywhere that you can find, like you go to Barstool's main page, put in beer games, you put in Vibbert. If you don't know how to get to a lot of this stuff, I understand, other than just searching for it on YouTube, and you'll be able to find all that shit.
It's a good time.
Yeah. John, you got anything exciting going on?
No, this is actually an interesting topic. The Vatican during World War II, what they were up to.
It's I scratched the surface of it, John. It is a huge fucking debate on whether or not they did anything or whether or not they did enough.
Well, they certainly did humanitarian. They did church stuff, but
yeah, no, 100%.
But wouldn't it be wild if they had like an army and they like called arms? That would have been cool, huh?
Yeah, but the thing is, like everything else is burning down to the ground around them, and they're totally
bringing swords and elephants.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, shouldn't they have? Like, shouldn't the Catholic? They did it because they wanted to. Like, I think what the Catholic Church wanted to do.
Probably paid to stay out of it. They took the money and just.
Yeah, or they feared any kind of reprisal. Like, if they were to piss off Hitler, maybe he'd invade the Vatican, steal all their gold, or maybe outside of their walls, Catholic populations in Nazi areas would then be thrown into ovens as well. I mean, it's not an easy decision to make when you're in Europe and speak out against Hitler, particularly when you're in Italy.
I mean, honestly, Italy is confusing because, like, Rome itself was occupied. Why the fuck would you occupy an ally? That makes no sense. So.
Yeah.
It wasn't Italy kind of.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It was like
it's hard to figure out.
Italy gets a fucking free pass. Look at the rat lines, RATLINES. That's what got people out. And there are a lot of forged documents and letters of like recommendation that were sent from the fucking Vatican or from high ups, at least.
Like
in the
you said,
Catholic
we've barely
Church.
broached this, but we should talk about this.
Yeah, I'll do a deeper dive.
Yeah.
All right. So what else do we got?
We have Earnhardt. We have Rubin. You got to try this. We have
When's
Sandwich of the Month.
NASCAR? Mexico City. When are you going?
We got a couple.
June. Mexico City's June. This weekend is North Carolina, but we're going down to Charlotte for the dropping of Earnhardt, the documentary.
Right.
You got to try this. Who's this week?
You got to try this week is KFC.
What's
Talking
the sandwich
about
of the month?
The sandwich of the month's a banger. It's called Which Came First, and I pipe deviled egg mixture on top of fried chicken. It's a good one.
I saw last night you tweeted pickled egg. Who likes pickled egg?
Oh, the pickled eggs too. I did
is
those last night.
that a tease at something or?
No, I just whenever I do it now, I just pop that shit up. But and then the following week we're gonna have Stratus Morphigan on. You got to try this. He's my guy. He's one of like his famous New York restaurateurs. So stay tuned for that. That's it. You got me something, John?
No, I think Ken Jack was just wondering if we were done.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's it for us. We'll talk to you guys next time on Twisted History.